Hi besties, welcome back to my channel. Long time no see, and sorry about my voice. I don't know what's happening. Like, I went out last weekend and my voice completely destroyed. Like, every time I go out, I have to like scream to talk, and that just does not work. So my voice is MIA. But I am very excited for today's video. We're gonna do my favorite books of 2023. So my favorite books of the year. I didn't read as many books as I read last year, or even the year before that. I think the year that I read the most was 2021. I think I read 50 books. Last year was MIA as well. And this year, it was okay. Like, I felt like I didn't read a lot, but I read. But I do think that I have like good books to talk about. Like, I had a lot of books this year that I absolutely adored. I had just a few that I didn't like. I usually, you guys know that I'm not like a harsh reader when it comes to books, but there were a few that I didn't like love or didn't like. So we're gonna talk about like my favorite ones, the ones that I would recommend you reading. So I hope you guys like the video. Make sure to subscribe down below and turn on the notification bell so you get notified when I upload more videos. And let's get started. Okay, so I have my phone over here with my Goodreads. Oh, and another thing, I was so disorganized with like my Goodreads this year. Like, I have the books that I read, but most of the time when I read a book, I didn't even put it in my Goodreads. So it was kind of a mess because like most of the times I forgot which books I read which month, and it was a whole mess. However, I tried to like fix it. So I think these are all the books that I read this year. I could be wrong, but let's just get into it. So the first book that I read this year, and a book that I really enjoyed and really liked, is The First 15 Lives of Harry August. If you guys remember that I did talk about this book a lot, like in February, I would say, where I had a phase where I was reading like a bunch of this author's books. So this is Claire North. I absolutely love her. Her books are kind of like, I don't even know how to explain her genre. Like, it's fiction, but basically I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. And this is about a man who basically kind of like reincarnates in his same body every time he dies for 15 lives. So in his first life, he died, and then he was born again, but he knew, like, he had to pass, he had to go through childhood, through puberty, everything, and he knew that he already had another life. And like, obviously different things happen in each life, but there is like one plot and one reason why he keeps being born, why he doesn't die. And another thing is that he's not the only one. So there's kind of like this secret society. Obviously, it's need to be a secret, because this book is set in like World War II, I think it was. I don't remember if it was the First War or the Second War, but it's one of those. He has something that he needs to do to save time, to save the world, because someone is time traveling. So yeah, you get the gist of it. I absolutely love this book. Honestly, it's kind of like it just, you really believe what is happening. I would really love to reread this book, honestly. It is a bit long, on the longer side in my opinion for this type of book. However, I personally loved it. So yeah, this was the first book that I loved this year. The next one that I absolutely adored, it's the cutest thing ever, is The Lost Ticket by Freya Sampson. I also raved about this book back in March because that's when I read it. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I hate that in Goodreads you can't actually rate a book 0.5 or point anything. So sometimes I have to put like 4 and it's actually 4.5 because but I made a review. I usually don't write reviews of books, but I did. So you know what? Let's get into it. Okay, long story short, Libby, the main character, gets broken up by her asshole of a boyfriend. She moves in with her sister who lives in London, and she starts taking the bus as transportation. She meets Frank, this very cute old man in the 88 bus, and he tells Libby the story of how he met an amazing woman on this same bus like 50 years ago, and she gave Frank her number. However, he lost it, and he's been trying to find her since, but he hasn't had any luck for 50 years. So Libby decides to help Frank find the girl from the 88 bus, which turns into a really cute adventure with Frank with his caretaker Dylan. Frank has dementia, so they're trying to find the girl from the 88 bus even faster. So now, let's get into my opinion at the time. So I wrote, honestly, this book made me feel like I was in London, and the friendships that Libby made along the way are just precious and beautiful. Also, this book just has so many parts that makes you believe in humanity, like the most beautiful, selfless acts. And you know what? Reading this, I do remember that's so true. Like, this book just gave me those butterflies where you like see so many selfless acts, and it literally makes you believe again in humanity, because there are so many like awful things in this world. But when you read some of the things in this book, you're just like why? Like, we need that in real life. Ugh. Okay, point number 3, things that I didn't like about the book. I think one thing that I disliked a bit was every single family member that Libby had. Just hated them with all my being. I remember Libby's parents and a family member and ex-boyfriend, just so bad. But yet again, I think that's the whole point. Okay, my rating was 4.5. And should you read this book? Absolutely. So that was my little review of this book, but I absolutely loved it. It's just a really beautiful and just worth reading book. The next book that I really liked is Fourth Wing. So I had a few months where I didn't read anything because I was traveling a bunch, and I just didn't actually I just didn't pick a book up. But then Fourth Wing came out and I read it. I gave this book 5 stars, apparently. I don't remember giving it 5 stars, but apparently I did. I think I don't even have to explain this book, so I'm just gonna give you guys my opinion. Now that it's been a few months and I haven't read Iron Flame, I liked this book. I wouldn't say it's a 5-star read, to be honest. Like, now thinking back at it, I would give it like 4.2, maybe 4.5. But it's a really good, like, fantasy, a lot of world building, a lot of adventure. It's very plot driven, so there's like a point to the story. I did love the characters, and obviously the main character Violet with Satan, I think he was called Satan. Love that. But to be honest, like, the story was interesting. It's a longer book, so you would maybe get bored a little bit, but personally I didn't. I don't remember getting bored. It was actually very like entertaining, fast-paced. A lot of things were happening, but you weren't bored. And then obviously at the end, if you've read it, you know that it ends in a huge cliffhanger that I did absolutely love. So I would say this is one of my favorite books of the year because I did quite enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's a 5-star read though. I don't know why I gave it 5 stars. So the next book that I would say is like one of my favorites of the year is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I think I read this book in a video or for a video for you guys. This book was a 5-star read. I absolutely love this book with my entire heart. The main 2 characters, I just love them. I loved the main male character. It's like, so cute and just worth the read just for him. Like, he's worth the read for the entire book. So this book is about Alexis. She's a doctor, I think is an ER doctor. And she meets this cute small town guy named Daniel, and they become kind of like friends with benefits. However, obviously it turns into more. And honestly, I gave this 5 stars just because of the main male character. Like, he is worth the read. It's just the most beautiful. It really reminded me of the main male character in Archer's Voice. That kind of like wholesome guy. I loved it. Then, after I read Part of Your World, I read Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, which is basically the second book in this. I wouldn't say it's a series because it's about 2 different couples. However, it's in the same world, so let's say in the series. So this is about Alexa's best friend, which is Dr. Brianna. She's also an ER doctor. And then it's a co-worker's kind of like enemies to lovers pen pal situation with her new co-worker, which is Dr. Jacob. And this is also an organ donor kind of trope. So a lot of things going on. They have a little rusty start, so it's a little bit enemies to lovers at first, but then it turns out really sweet. I did love their relationship and their story. It was just so adorable and so cute. So this was also like one of my favorite books of the year. I think I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. But just the entire series is just so worth reading, and I loved Abby Jimenez's writing. Then I'm gonna mention this book because I feel like it is worth the read. So The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This is definitely one of the most heartbreaking books I've read in a while. So make sure to like read the trigger warnings. It has a lot of trigger warnings, but this book is basically written in a journal style. So the main character, Charlie, is this kid who is going through in his teen years, and he has like a very troubled past. He's very traumatized for some reason that you don't really know until the end. But he makes friends along the way, and it's just like, it's a wholesome book that at the end you're just like, it all makes sense. Which is sad. It's a sad, it all makes sense. However, I think it's a really real situation. So I feel like if you could read this book, definitely read it. Like, if you could pass on, like, if you could read those trigger warnings, like, read the book. It's just really beautiful. And I gave this book 5 stars because I do remember that just because of the story and how it was written and everything, and how real it feels, it's just a 5-star read. It's just, this is what I wrote in my review. This is the most beautifully written book I've ever read, because literally. After that, I actually read a book. It's a nonfiction book. It's kind of like a motivational book, but this book is so underrated. So this book is I Don't Want to Grow Up by Scott Stillman. I have talked about this book before, but not so much. So this book is basically about the gateway to the soul in nature's silent message offers a glimpse into his childhood of skateboarding, high school brawls, and early trials and tribulations with money and success. The scenery may be different, but the writing style is business as usual, with life lessons cruising a mile a minute in this insightful read about what it means to never grow up. What do you want? What do you want to be when you grow up? We've been asked this question over and over practically since the day we could walk. Many of us have absolutely no idea. We never have and we never will. This bothers us terribly and on a profound level. We feel useless, disconnected, scattered, unfocused. If we could just make up our minds about something, about anything. What if you didn't have to grow up? Society would like us to believe that to be happy we need successful careers. But let's face it, we're not all meant to be doctors, lawyers, scientists, and accountants. Some are meant to be dreamers, the people on the fringes of society who don't necessarily subscribe to the modern version of the American dream. Artists, adrenaline junkies, nomads, life seekers, those who doubt conventional wisdom, question authority, and continually search for newer, better ways to live. The world needs freaks, now more than ever. Never before has there been such an opportunity to live the life of your dreams. Never before has there been so many ways to earn an income. Never have there been so many ways to have fun. What do you want to be when you don't grow up? I did actually find this book through TikTok because the author kind of like puts snippets of his pages, like book pages on TikTok, and I read one of his quotes and I was like, I need to read that. Like, I need this in my life, and I need someone to help me think that way. If you're struggling going into, I don't know, going to high school, college, graduating college, graduating high school or something, and you just really don't know what to do with your life, and you may kind of feel lost or something, this book is gonna literally save your life. It's just a beautiful book that it really teaches you a lot of things, and it's just, I am never going to forget this book. It was just so good. And then we get to another book that I absolutely adored this year, which was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is the first book. The second book I think is coming out literally in a few days. Wait, I think it is. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Okay, I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. So this is a enemies to lovers, co-workers, and also a pen pal situation. Kind of like a book with fantasy that feels that it doesn't have that much fantasy. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it is a world where like creatures exist and there are things that don't exist in the real life. However, it does feel like you're reading the book and it feels real. I really like this book. I am so excited for the second book. This does end kind of like in Fourth Wing, that it ends in a plot twist and a cliffhanger. I love that, and if you haven't read this book, I really do recommend it. Then let's talk about what is this psychological thriller, you would say? Psychological thriller. This is The Book of Cold Cases. Sorry, this is a kind of like a supernatural psychological thriller. It's gonna have you, like, you need to know what's gonna happen. Like, I was reading this book and I read this book so fast because I was like skimming through the pages and I needed to know what happened. So I gave this book 4.8 out of 5 stars. This was the first book that I read for like the October season, for Halloween, for the spooky season, and I absolutely loved it. So in 1977, Clear Lake, Oregon was shaken by the Lady Killer murders. 2 men, seemingly randomly, were murdered with the same gun with strange notes left behind. Beth Greer was the perfect suspect, a rich, eccentric 23-year-old woman seen fleeing one of the crimes. I absolutely love this book. It was so good. I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I did, and I'm so glad that I read it because it was crazy. It was good. Okay, then I read literally one of my favorite romance books of the year. I don't know if this was my favorite, but it was just one of the most beautiful books I've read in a while, like in a long time. So I read Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This book is so beautiful. So this is an accidental pregnancy trope right from the start. So it starts with the main female character and main male character having a one-night stand, and she gets pregnant. She tells him that she gets pregnant, and then it starts like the whole story of how kind of they're going to live with this, and they become roommates. And I thought it was the cutest book ever because like they are the sweetest with each other. Like, the guy is so sweet with her. He treats her so well. They're not together for the majority of the book. They're just the cutest, and the guy is the cutest and most like wholesome thing ever. It's just a really, really, really cute and good book. Also kind of spicy at times. Like, the first few pages, it's the one night stand, and it's a detailed one night stand, let me tell you. But like, it just gets better after that. I loved this book so much. Then after that, I read Safety Measures by Maybe Hazel, and this was actually an ARC. This author sent me her book as an ARC, and I read it immediately. And I'm so glad that I did. This was a 5-star read. I absolutely loved it. It's because it's one of the, it's the first book that I've read that it's actually a true childhood best friends to lovers. Most of the time, childhood best friends to lovers is like they were childhood best friends, then something happened, they don't talk to each other until like 10, 15 years later, and then the story happens. So what I did love about this book is that it is childhood best friends to lovers, but it's literally since they were little, they are neighbors, childhood best friends, and you just get the transition to them being like 20 something, 21, 22, and then just seeing their first lovers part. They never went apart, you know? So you get the entire story, and it's just very beautiful. And just to put it out there, this is a very spicy book. I wouldn't say it's the spiciest book I've read, but it is very spicy. So if you don't like spicy books, do not read this book. Like, you will not like it. Do not read it. But if you do, then read it, because I loved it. Then after I read that, I had my week where I only read like thriller books. So let's get into the one that, well, the two, I would say the two that were my favorites. So the first one was The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Yeah, I gave this book 5 stars. This book was so interesting, so good. Like, the plot, I absolutely love the plot. I love the characters. I love the story. Like, this is something that I would die to have as a TV show. That would be so, so good. Like, tell me that wouldn't be so good. Okay, so the main character, she's a very good profiler. She can see someone without even talking to them and literally guess what that person does, what their problems are, like, etc, etc, etc. So, but then she gets scouted by the FBI to start in a program that they have where these teens with rare gifts help close cold cases. So she says yes, and she goes to this program. So it's a house in the middle of nowhere. Well, I don't know if it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's a really big house where the other kids live. So they are being trained. There are different people with different gifts. So there are 2 profilers, her and a guy. Then we have like a human lie detector. We have a human emotion detector. So there are a bunch of kids with a bunch of rare gifts. And it's a really interesting story because we get how they are trained and how they use their gifts, and it's just very fascinating. Then I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I absolutely loved as well. I didn't love it as much as The Naturals, however, it was a very good book. I was very entertained. This is about a teenage girl who is doing her capstone project for high school, her senior capstone project, and she chose to investigate a local girl's murder. It's a murder that happened 5 years ago, but the killer was never actually found. So she starts interviewing half of the town. Obviously, at some point, it gets very dangerous because she's getting very close to finding out who actually killed the girl. And it's just a very interesting, fast-paced book, and there are a bunch of things going on, and I loved it because it had me guessing left and right. Like, at first I thought it was one person, and then the other one, and then the other one. I was never right. I am never right. I didn't get it. And I liked that I didn't get it because you get that like plot twist and surprise at the end. And the last book that I'm going to talk about today is Heartstopper Volume 1. So book 1, this is kind of like a comic. You probably know about Heartstopper. So I read this for the TBR series over on my TikTok, and actually when I bought it, I didn't know it was a comic, but then one day I just randomly picked it up to see it, I don't know, and I realized there was a comic, and then it got chosen randomly for the TBR series, and I read it in literally like an hour or maybe less, and it was so cute, and I loved it. I loved the main 2 characters. I love their story, and I'm so happy. And I'm so happy I got all of the other volumes, so I can like read them and know what's gonna happen. But I absolutely love that book. It's just so cute. It says here that I gave it 4 stars, but why do I feel like I gave it 4.5? I'm not sure, but maybe it's a 4.5. I think it's a 4.5 out of 5 stars. But either way, it's still not a 5-star read, and I still need to read the other books in the series to see if those are going to be 5-star reads. So let's see. So besties, those are all the books that I'm going to recommend to you guys today. So I think those were my favorites of the year. I hope I didn't miss anything, because of my mess with Goodreads. Either way, all of the books that I mentioned today are books that I absolutely loved with all my heart, and just books that I had so much fun reading and I had such a good time reading, and they are worth the read in my opinion. So stay tuned, but I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in my next one. I love you guys. Bye!